Your kids are really gonna dig it. Just, tell them the theater gets really dusty at the adult eye level. Yeah. Disney's live-action updates of their animated canon have generally gone in one of two directions. The straight-up remakes have been okay to mostly forgettable in a what's the point of this kind of way, while the ones that do more of a reimagining, sequel, continuation, alternate take thing have been pretty interesting and will probably remain so until that Tim Burton Dumbo thing happens. Why? Why would you do that to people? Ahem. Christopher Robin is the second type, framed as a many years later follow-up to Disney's original animated version of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh that borrows the central plot conceit from the infamous Robin Williams, Steven Spielberg, Peter Pan continuation Hook. Because every generation of kids needs at least one fantasy movie that's gently delightful for them while emotionally devastating for their parents in ways the kids won't comprehend for years to come. Picking up something like 20 years after Christopher Robin departs the 100-acre wood for boarding school at the end of the original story, the film mainly centers on Ewan McGregor as a now grown Christopher Robin, hardened into a dreary adult by the early death of his own father, his own service in World War II, and the pressures of a thankless office job to the point where his world weariness is beginning to prematurely sap the joy from his relationship with his own wife and daughter. When he's forced by a grim work assignment to miss a planned holiday weekend with them, he finds his despondency interrupted by the sudden reappearance of his old, apparently not imaginary after all, friend Winnie the Pooh, who benignly prods him into a quest to locate the other stuffed animal companions who've gone missing in a mysterious fog that's descended over the 100-acre wood in his long absence. The metaphor is admittedly a bit on the nose. Yes, the only way to find them is for Christopher to remember how to be a kid again. Yes, getting them back together gradually brings the sunlight and resaturates the cinematography. Yes, the prelude cross-cutting implies a metaphysical connection between Christopher's psyche and memory, Pooh's sentience itself, and the stability of their world. And at certain points, it almost feels as though the film, which is directed by Mark Forster from a screenplay credited to Alex Ross Perry and Alison Schroeder, might have at one point been meant to take a more subdued, esoteric approach to the material, focus more on Christopher Robin's interior conflict and leaving the reality of Pooh's return more ambiguous, whereas the film proper is more straightforward in the narrative, with the dream logic illusions informing the aesthetic rather than the storyline, with Pooh and the other animal characters getting extended scenes to themselves in a fast-paced rush to save the day third act that leaves no doubt as to whether or not this is all really happening and that things will work out, which all things considered is probably for the best, considering that the age of the target audience is not going to be in doubt about those things to begin with. The result is a tender, gentle, often achingly sincere family film that balances out a near-complete lack of cynicism or edge, with a shaggy, lived-in, decidedly English visual sensibility that finds sunshine and autumnal hues and warmth in metropolitan London bustle, and while it moves at a crisp enough tempo and features more than enough funny animal shenanigans to keep the littlest ones engaged, the majority of it is admirably restrained and deliberately paced. The bulk of the central act is given over to extended scenes of McGregor simply traveling from place to place in humorously frustrating yet enlightened conversations with Pooh. And this is the stuff that has to work for Christopher Robin to work at all, and luckily they really do nail it. Sure, McGregor's arc isn't the most complex in the world, and you can see the journey and the necessary steps he'll need to take stretched out clearly fairly early on, but he ably gets us on board with the reality of his character, which is impressive considering most of his screen time is spent alone explaining himself to CGI stuffed animals. Similar credit as well to Haley Atwell and Bronte Carmichael as Christopher's wife and daughter, who get a bit more screen time than such characters typically get in sad dads learning to be boys again movies like this, and both give richly textured turns with the opportunity. The MVP, of course, though, is voice acting legend Jim Cummings once again voicing Pooh. Just hearing the familiar voice deliver some of the iconic dialogue again is enough to send a palpable shiver through the audience, but the script and Cummings' by now transcendently second-nature performance really do make effectively perfect use of Winnie the Pooh's signature rambling, malapropism-laden dialogue as a way of putting a cushion underneath some pretty heavy exchanges about aging, depression, relationships, life, death, growing up, and loss, so that it's all funny for the kids, even as older audiences are getting choked up under the emotional weight of it all. Christopher Robin is a low-key, deep-impact winner that feels like a welcome emotional balm in a summer season where even most family films have been characterized by bombast and frenetic gag-a-minute pacing, infused with a sweet but not at all treacly atmosphere that comes in like a gentle hug and should leave young audiences smiling in content, even as the grown-ups are sobbing like they haven't since that Mr. Rogers documentary a few months ago. Fans especially steeped in nostalgia for the Disney deep canon lore will definitely want to stick around through the credits, trust me on that one. 3.5 stars, definitely just the right movie for the tail end of the summer.